doing an actual process.
Well, it's kind of just like a wax.
Thank you everybody for coming to Easy Paradise. This is very exciting for me. This is my first lit mag, and you know, I've never done a launch before, so this is like very amazing space. I'd like to thank Spoonbill 99 for helping us to do it. We have copies of the magazine over there for $7. I'm super thrilled with the way it turned out. I guess I'll just say like kind of a few things in prefatory remarks before the reading gets started. I guess the idea was kind of like, I was reading a lot of like I was kind of obsessed with like Mimeo, the kind of Mimeo movement of the New York school, like in the 60s and 70s, and they kind of had this approach where like, they would just kind of publish their friends and stuff and just kind of publish the work that they liked. It was kind of like a DIY thing and just kind of doing it, you know, rather than like sort of submitting or, you know, like I don't really like that model of things, like kind of holding open submissions and kind of like, you know, it's too anonymous. Like I kind of specifically sought out, like I do a lot of open mics, I do a lot of like workshops and classes, so like these were all people I met or saw read and something resonated with me. And, you know, part of this Mimeo movement is all these poets kind of lived on the Lower East Side, and so they had like this community where like they all lived in the same neighborhood. And like Bernadette Mayer tells a story about she would leave her apartment on her way to the church and she would run into poets on the way and she'd ask them like, you know, for a poem for her magazine. And by the time she would get to the church, she would have a whole magazine. So it took me a little bit longer. And a lot of people in this book I really only met one time. But I just really enjoyed their work. And I just kind of wanted to share it, you know. And met a lot of people at Bruce High Quality Foundation, a workshop there. Met a lot of people at workshops in the Poetry Project. And I did kind of want to create like a community, I guess. These were people that like, because of their work, I kind of wanted to know them better. I did kind of want to be friends. There was this like urge, like I did want to have that kind of like utopic or like, you know, like ideological, I guess, like community with them, you know. And there wasn't necessarily like a theme other than the name. I just told people it's called Easy Paradise, and like they probably knew who I was and knew that I was kind of like a laid-back dude or something. And so like the work was oddly appropriate. Like Chris sent me a poem called "It Never Was, Enjoys Life," and being something it never was, I was like, yeah, that's for me, you know. And I'm super proud of the work, and I just want to share it with people. There's a mixtape that I put on SoundCloud that you can check out. It's sort of like the online presence of the magazine, where you can go on and you can listen to all the poets read from the book, read their work. And I thought that was kind of a cool way to kind of distribute it that way. But the book is great too. I printed it on lulu.com. It's got the smallest typeface known to man, so it'll probably give you a headache, I guess, if you try to read it. But that's part of the point. It's intimate, as Mary Boo said. So it kind of draws you in, and I'm getting it in bookstores. It's at Spoonbill in Williamsburg, or you can get it here tonight. I would like to thank Daniel Jones for giving me kind of helping me, giving me guidance. He has a great magazine called Folder Magazine that he puts out. He really kind of helped me through the process, just kind of gave me, we kind of compared notes. And then my friend Greg Masters, who couldn't be here tonight. There's a lot of people in the magazine who couldn't be here. Camilo Roldan, he's out of the country. Wimpy is in Chicago. And I wish they could be here. Their work means a lot to me, and just as people they do. But my friend Greg Masters, he had a magazine called Mag City, which was like one of the Mimeo magazines, and they published a lot of people. And I've been meeting with him, you know, like he gave me a stereo the other day. So he kind of was like, you know, a spirit guide, I guess, along the way. But I guess I will get started reading. This poem is sort of a mission statement of sorts. And then we'll get started with the other poets. But this is called Carrot Week. Green beans try to rise themselves in shoots of recognition we often get, slow but not much. Yucatan candlelight toppled over, dreading its means at the Dollar Tree on the way back. Dewy guy's hat's a lemon, exuding cathode ray ode, pops up like agua, peaking in animosity. I'm going to close this door real fast. Pops up like agua, peaking in animosity. Needed to drip out my hair, in a good way though. What's home for the holidays? Waves not impossible, oh my darlings. Nothing's remembered what it said. Oblivion and its discontents ride tonight.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to get started here. This gentleman is a great poet. I love his poem in the book. Let's have a big round of applause for Chris Roberts.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
This one is called "It Never Was Enjoys Life." In New York City, stars cannot be seen from Bushwick rooftops. In the summer air, I tell this girl that I'm in love with her. She says, me too. We smoke a lot of weed. We talk about the chance of alien life, about ideas that we've had for books that we would like to write if we had time, and then it gets too dark to see our hands. We come inside, too high to leave our place and meet our friends whose texts have piled up. We order in, we eat, we watch TV, we go to bed. Tomorrow's not today. I see 12 constellations in a dream. I touch them all at once. They talk with me about a book that no one's thought to write. My lover asks me why I'm leaving bed, but I can't even stop to speak to her, or else this inspiration will dry up before it's written down. I power up my notebook, but there's nothing there. The next day, at the coffee shop, I write a scene about a couple on a roof. The man attempts to talk about the stars, but finding them obscured, the plot dissolves. A friend texts wanting to go see a film that I've been putting off. I'm glad to go and join my friend and think about the film as though it is my own. And that's enough. And last one. This one is about the video game Tetris, and it is called Tetris. The only thing that we can know for sure is that this world will end in our defeat. And yet we keep on fitting blocks in lines as though we think forever is a time that we can live to see, that we can be. The day is one. Some Russian dancers twirl and then a rocket launches into space. The blocks are gone from recent memory, then they recommence at even greater speeds and give no rationale for why they are. Those blocks that do not fit in lines stack up until the sky runs out of room for them, and this point triggers an apocalypse. There is no hell or heaven after this, but only the demise of all that is.
Next up, we're going to have Daniel read, so let's give him a big round of applause.
We're sitting, staring at each other. How's it going? Okay, so I don't know what I'm going to read. I have two things. Can you point at one? Wow. Okay. So this is from a longer poem called Regular Riot. This accounts, probably, for the gain and loss scattered through. Even perhaps the apparent reference to death the present sums up, almost to a marmoreal meditation figure, like in the irrational desire from a time of day pushed down toward its ideation, which gives almost nothing in variations, and is its vision of love, hymns only to the drawing flame, in the crevices of that flame's idealizing meaning. In so alternately a duration, so subtle as to be almost the indiscernible opening from the closing this time, that then the never more strongly felt culmination finds its breaks in the antechamber what either of us confronted: phallic heterosexuality, interchange of interior worlds, an echo to us right, nor any longer a dense dying high ship, urged upon its aspect to summer, all that will be deciphered, but rather the secret of what goes on. Like this massive declaration that something dwells in, I, as a self-declared painfully fragment, without precursors, are made upon, and I think this often, written in a kind of cyclic repetition, with a much shorter first idea I am aware of and are addressed by, becoming this frequently addressed to my soul, or the antithetical you, in the same primary place. A glass of water that goes back to its old rhetorical cliche, then mostly chooses ordinary things at length. It may be a mistake half a dozen times. They are wholly and outwardly am. He has lost all initiative. It has been replaced by this senior kind of newness, at first, reading the subject matter from point to point, if there were points, but repeated. That is necessary. Conferred to the you, and to the reimagining I, through the soul's consciousness to the mascot, perhaps, of one elegized in the afterglow. The life of growth attained, stupefied at this point in visions of the tower threatened, that can be shut out by turning away from it. They beckon now, a choice of all kinds. I think that is an accurate account of the design. But I am aware such an account gives little sense of how there are more truly and more strange and any more of it at this time already developed, and in an imaginative crisis, without resorting to psychosexual reductiveness. Venture into this quest romance. Rose, the origin and the course together. A purposive wandering, the poem opens with. The statement that prepared the reader for the penultimate paragraph we cannot imagine, and is finally what takes us up from the outset, inevitably soon enough seen as the first phase of quest fails. Thus, a going forth and being there to get her, apocalyptic yearnings, an effective passivity, his own kind of negative capability, becoming but waiting upon a dream, and as he waits, one theory of growth in a slow burst of concept, which we could find in the, I think, more end with which the soul moves away, gradually accruing rest by evading both notions of growth and confronting latent happiness, again more evasive, as by now we must expect, for defensive reasons, involving both the long espousal of a poignant culmination and when will you realize that these are but for the lovely dreamer's defense. His own dark tower approaches, to be confronted there, we can be reasonably certain, neither wants nor expects any end, and very gently is completed, though all this will be lost again for now, this ocean akin to vision, yet a return of the still kinetic future, some of them involuntary on the final page, an image of saving transparence, the new changes, movingly provided by the waiting more than 15 years, friends and students, peering into us until an intimate emptiness. Thanks.
So this next poet I met at a reading called Having a Whiskey Coke in You, which is great. It's in Park Slope a long time ago. And she actually came and did an open mic. We used to have a thing called the Slooge in my basement, which was like an open mic we did with musicians and poets and things. And she actually came and read at that. Very powerful performer. Let's have a big round of applause for Jordan Franklin.
Some days you can't write poems. Some days he admits you're his kid to strangers. Some days you believe if you think hard enough about him, he will stride out of an ear and onto his own 2 feet again. Some days you are the apple of his eye, sweet but defective. Some days there's raspberry wax on your tongue. Some days you can't write poems about. Some days you forget his hands don't work. Some days you're almost worth something. Some days you envy your brothers for stepping out of his life. Some days his words flit on repeat in your head. I would have been a doctor if it wasn't for you. I tried not to be my father and I failed. Some days you can't write poems about mom. Some days you remember his hugs, the warmth of his hands. Some days you regret becoming a poet. Some days you don't want to waste prayers on him. Some days to speak of him is to drown your larynx in raspberries. Some days you can't write poems about mom because some days he'll wish you were his son. Some days he'll wish he left. Some days he'll take you to the gardens, other days to the auto show. Some days you're his favorite and he'll tell you so. Some days he'll say, fuck your brothers. Some days you're used to his threats. Some days you can't write poems about mom because some days he'll ask you for a gun. Some days you realize he was dead long before you entered the world. Some days writing helps. Some days there's a grave between syllables. Some days, if you turn your headphones up enough, you can breathe past the raspberries. Some days you can't write poems about mom because she loves. Some days he laughs and the world brightens. Some days he's not your dad on the phone. Some days you have a plan for if his hands come for your brothers again. Some days second person isn't confession. Some days you can't write poems about mom because she loves you. Some days, no, every day, wax softens and hardens around the thought of him. Some days you work those old heart scabs loose like nails. Some days you don't want to wake up to this. Some days those raspberries smother you. Some days you wonder when someone will say, that's enough, Jordan. How do you sleep? Some days you slept only after you pinned down veins in your arms of self-made thorns. How do you sleep? He sleeps fine, deeply. You've never been a thought he's claimed to have. And some days there's no grand volta at the end. Some days the raspberries are fresh. Hi, I'm Jordan. Matt, thank you for inviting me here, and thank you for watching my poems. And sorry, I'm not used to reading from my phone, so I don't want to leave everyone depressed. So I'm gonna try and do one that's more.
Oh, you're fine, either way.
Okay. I've never this one sitting before, so Madison, radio, stop! In my head, buzzing across the surface, the synapse, the wires, radius churning out noise, audible sounds, voices, static, quiet, static. Hip-hop, a little bar quartet, a third, no fourth movement, like a Rorschach test. The pitter-patter of fine knots above, the eyes and below the matted crown, flicker on the lights. 1, 2, 3, 4, louder, perfection. Crisp, clear stations fluttering. Bang, bang, bam, fuck. I'm a radio on all stations, on at all times of day. Never ending, never quiet, no quiet inside. Must never be quiet. Static, quiet, static. Silence. Batteries expired. Thank you.
I relate to that so much. The thing about the radio, like my goal is to kind of be a radio too. You know, like being like a transistor for kind of weird frequencies. Our band is kind of like that too. So I love that piece. That's so great. This next poet I met at the Poets Settlement in Gowanus, and they run a great reading series at Pete's Candy Store called Cool as Fuck. You should definitely check it out. They have great social media as well. You should check out their Instagram and their Twitter. And give them a big round of applause for Mary Boo Anderson, everybody.
Wow. Dang. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, Spoonbill. Thank you for all the lovely readers that I've read today. I'm really grateful to be in this room and this magazine. It's very, very cool. I'm gonna read one thing, like a phone note I have, and then I'll read some poems in this cool-ass magazine that you gotta read, because you gotta support the DIY arts, you know, you got to. Come on. Come on. $7, come on. That's my argument for everything. Come on. Alright. I realize this is like me pretending to be chill, and so I have to say. When men talk to me, I see endless red zigzag lines under all their words. I live in New York. I've been busy. I'm killing unkillable plants. Plants are so passive-aggressive, like, I'm wilting and thirsty, but also I'm fine. I need all living things to communicate clearly with me. People always think that by not being clear, they're being nice. They're softening the blow. Bitch, what blow? Bitch, tell me your expectations and needs so I can lovingly fulfill them, or fuck off. I stand by every bad decision I've ever made. Oh, this is a different poem. Okay, never mind. Anyways, okay. They all flow into one, right? Alright, I'm going to read 2 poems from this sick magazine right here. Sorry, a little under the weather. Alright, this is what I made in collaboration with my bot. I have many bots. I'm a proud bot mom. I want a bumper sticker if I had a car that said proud bot mom. My bot is on the honor roll or something like that, but I don't have either of those things. But I have a bot. I have so many bots. I have a bot based off things people have sent to me on Tinder. I have a bot based off of Ruby core lines that regenerates them in different orders so you can see how her lines work. I have one that says, like, you know, in poetry, it's like the ocean of you, the playground of you. Mine, I have this bot that just like randomly generates words. It'd be like the IKEA showroom of you, the fucked up Chick-fil-A order of you, stuff like that. But this bot is my favorite bot, of course, because it's based off myself. And so I made this with her. I assume everyone's in the ocean. A year is filled glasses of a person. I was labeled a bad girl when I was dating a beer, except I'm a bird. A cry for rightness with this selfie, so wild to be learned, so this is a rumor that I don't believe in the right. I propositioned PayPal to make friends, hid under my boundaries for profit, so now I feel so cultured. Who haven't cried on the contract? The obtuse angles of a year, someone was a cute thing at sad things into making things that love to clog drain. I've come with the dark circles under my friends. We live in the constant belligerent presence of the sharp shining beauty of escapism, birds nesting in the Rite Aid. And let me read this other one in this cool book you gotta buy. I'm trying to make eye contact with all of you. So we have like a secret contract. Anyways, I'm really glad this poem found a home in print because I was worried my coworker or my boss would find it. Because it's kind of about all of them. This is called A Job is a Job is a Job. It would appear as if we're in a meeting, talking, but I'm actually alone, washing dishes in the dark. Or that's what it feels like. Hard to say. I'm watching his mouth flop around unpleasantly, like sea lions at Fisherman's Wharf. As a child, I went fishing with my dad in Florida. Once, we caught a dolphin. Fish, not the mammal. It was big and beautiful, a rainbow of blues and greens. We unhooked it and put it in the cooler. It was my job to sit on the cooler. I felt it flop and kick against me until it died. The person talking to me is making sounds, and I blink and I can change the sounds. Blink, goats yelling, blink, static, blink, Andy Rooney, blink, blink. My heart is palpitating for no reason in particular, pounding against my sternum. I sit on it. Thank you.
Poem with an Andy Rooney reference.
Yeah.
Like I just had to publish that, of course. There's not enough Andy Rooney poems out there. This next poet is one of my favorite poets and intellectuals, and I'm super excited to see what they're going to read. Let's have a big round of applause for Olivia Mardwig, everybody.
Like all intellectuals, I'm wearing my turtleneck. I was thinking a lot lately about choices you make that result in the rest of your life. If you're unlucky enough choices other people make, it's very unproductive. I wouldn't recommend it to any of you, but it does speak to the choices of these poems tonight. So in the interest of alternatives, I thought I would read poems that I was going to submit to the magazine but did not. I hope you like poems about art. The Critic. It was spring in the gallery, a sly appearance of April, already here and yes. The canvas on the wall was a speaking, the splatter of paint in the corner, a movement to delay time in the making of it. We cannot understand desire, but we can appreciate its boldness, the rush and whir of a certain blue as something enormous. I was kidding myself when I thought that beauty was a feeling when it is only a matter of duration, when I thought that you could lose pleasure or that you could keep it. This last poem is called The Child. They say that objects are not born, that an image needs a viewer to complete it. They say that in repetition there is no change, that we lie so we can get to the truth. They say that meaning is hidden, and the real and true time is the time just before, that mourning is not a return, but a continuation, that when a birthday comes, it takes away another year. I keep coming back to spring, my mistakes, coming back to my life by giving it away, and still I think the value we give things is in our attention, that choosing one stone out of 1,000 is the same as giving it a name. I say that you should always leave a party before it ends, that maybe the only history is the one that is felt, that each moment is always the first time, and besides, what use is the past if the future is unknowable?
I feel like this is probably like the fastest poetry reading in history. Like everybody's just like booking it. You want to come up again? I don't know. I guess we'll keep trucking. We have books on sale, so please buy them or take them. I don't care. This is not a money-making venture for me. It's a small poetry magazine. I'm giving them away at this point. I just want the work to be out there, you know. Vaporwave, everybody. We've got Vaporwave here.
Yeah.
There's Vaporwave here tonight.
Transporter.
They left. They're gonna miss the whole reading, but
They
maybe we
did?
install a little bit, and Nicole will be back.
She's going to be here like in a
Yeah.
minute.
Okay.
Where'd they go?
they went to like get a snack or something. So they're gonna miss the entire event. But thank you again, Jonas and Spoonbill. Let's give them. Thank you for letting us do the event here and for selling the book. Really appreciate it. Really a lot. Thank you very much. It's a great store. I'm definitely gonna buy some stuff when I am done with this. This next poet. Not that I love doing this. This is great. I'm happy to be in this moment right now.
Me too.
Awesome. Yeah, my man. This next poet I met in a workshop at the Poetry Project, Arlo Quint's workshop. He's got some work in the book, and I just love talking about poetry and amazing work in the magazine. Let's have a big round of applause for Phoebe Greer.
So I met Matt in the workshop, and we kind of bonded over all of these New York School poets that we were geeking on. And I was seriously geeking on them because I studied with Larry Fagan, who's kind of like he was part of that era of people, and he's like used to live in St. Mark's area, and he actually died last May. So I kind of wrote the poem that's in the book after he died in honor of him, which now that I think about it, he hates sentimentality. He hates it so much, and I honestly don't think he would like this poem, but it is for him. So I'll just read a poem that is that was collaborative work that I did with Larry, I just wanted to say, like, you should check out his work. He's a really amazing editor. In this piece, we would talk about specific words. He was very, just so detail oriented, and one of the examples was like, I used the word weird to explain something, and he was like, it's never weird. You don't say that word. It's always odd. And it just really changed the poem when he said that. So it's kind of weird also to sorry, Larry, to read this work because I don't really write like this anymore. This was kind of like my New York School experiment, and then I started reading Gertrude Stein and everything changed. So I'll just read these. So this is just called Poem. The finches in my cherry tree are singing Donizetti. I sing back, but it's pretty rough. One summer day I was bored, so my mother gave me a mop, sent my sister and I to the basement. She thought it was our business to say hello to all the neighbors on the block, our business to know them. I grew quickly and couldn't adjust the corners in the house and would crash into them. I had stopped wearing bows on my socks. The dog and I were the same age. I am a helicopter poet. I get up there to see how clouds move between buildings. I write the weather. The way head tilted looking up at the sky. I am spinning. Like the couple next to me on this bench. The man hasn't said anything in 10 minutes. The woman is talking. She might as well be fluff like the clouds no one notices. Sun directly overhead and wind blowing trash into traffic. Trash is getting up again and circling itself and up in the air. She gave me a notebook with no lines. Fill it with poems, she said. Odd, like the grabby baby on the cover. I was invited by a cool lesbian to go to a cool bar with other cool ones. I was gonna go, but I remembered I had a dead fish in my bag. Instead of explaining, I got on my bike and joined the traffic on 2nd Ave, screaming like Edith Piaf. Okay, so this one is for Larry. Eulogy for LF. Call it falling apart in the neighborhood Bushwick vintage store. The white pants were cute. They will get dirty. Alfred behind the counter tells me I'm cute also. He says his problem is being black at a PWI. I'm holding a dirty comforter. In Turkey, I forgot to wear socks, so a drunk man chased me around the cobblestone neighborhood. I went into a corner store, told the shop owner he didn't speak my language. On my birthday, I took the streetcar home alone. Maybe I turned 21. A nightmare I have is being stuck in a house like a museum. In India, drink wine. The water is filthy. Ganesha and friends make storms. The power goes out. My roommate reads auras. She saw mine behind my head. We went to another town to be silent for a week. Buddha said it would be peaceful. He could talk. Last time I talked to Larry on the phone, he could barely make a sound. An email told me he died in the morning. I imagined there were a group of maenads surrounding his bed instead of nurses, who pet his fontanelle, his favorite word spoken, Ausgezeichnet. Thank you.
What does Ausgezeichnet mean?
It means
Remarkable. Oh, sorry.
Really?
like excellent, remarkable.
It's an amazing word, definitely.
Yeah, it's
Ausgezeichnet.
fun to say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Austria.
Oh, okay. Is that where he picked it up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Larry Fagan and people like that, they live in this building, 437 East 12th Street, which I kind of nerd out about. I was like, Greg lives there, so I was there the other day, but this building, like Allen Ginsberg lived in, John Godfrey lives there, Simone Pettit, I think, lives there. It's like, they call it the Poet's Dorm. So yeah, like a lot of those magazines and stuff were like very influential. Adventures in Poetry.
Richard Hell still lives there.
Richard Hell, yeah, Richard Hell lives there.
He still lives there, right? He still lives
Yeah.
there.
Sal Mimeo, he had a magazine called Sal Mimeo, like those magazines, Angel Hair, books, United Artists books, like all of that stuff was like very influential when I was making this magazine, sort of trying to do something in that vein.
Yeah, I mean, can I just say, like,
Sure.
I mean, with Larry Fagan, he called me up, like, he had cancer, right? And
He had lung cancer.
yeah, he was dying, but he was actually trying to recover, or like, anyway, I bought, like, almost all of his books, except for the really valuable books, which Grade Books bought, but a lot of the books, well, they kind of all got sold already, but
Yeah, I remember him telling me he talked to you and he gave you copies of fragments. His book.
Fragments, yeah, I think
Like-
we have it here.
Yeah.
Right, but all the adventures in poetry and just all of it. Anyway, and I talked to him for a while, and it was cool. And it wasn't at the point where he was going to die. It was like he was still
Yeah.
trying to get through the cancer.
Yeah, 'cause he was doing this experimental. He was part of a research experimental
Right.
thing.
But he's a very cool guy. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's amazing about, living in New York and coming to these bookstores. Like, you'll be looking through a book and it's like inscribed, and you're like, fuck, this is Larry Fagan's book or something. And you're like, holy shit, like, yeah, I'll buy this. It's like, it's a small world, not that many people are interested, I guess. Surprisingly, I love poetry. I love all this shit.
Yeah.
Like the mixtape, I can't believe people don't just go on it, they're just like, this is incredible. Or like these books I published, I don't know how I'm gonna get rid of them. I got 120 of them. I'm trying to sell them. Hopefully people will buy them, but like, I just can't believe that people don't go wild for this stuff because I don't know. I live for it personally. But so this next poet I met at Bruce High Quality Foundation. I really like their work, and I'm psyched to have their work in the book. And they, there was a very like conscientious point of view that was necessary that was put across. And so I'm super excited to see what they're going to do tonight. So let's have a big hand up for Tess Sanders.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Spoonbill, for having us and all of the Mary Boo? Boo, okay. You had me at, in the hopes of dispelling this terrible emptiness. Okay. Oh, and this is a little chapbook that I put together, and I was really happy for like a reason to put it together and like an occasion to which, like to work, towards which to work. I did well with that apparently. All right, I'll start with the anti-dedication. I was thinking friendly on an idea, but how does my ass look? I was hanging out, smiling, then faced the judgment, angled the lens that pronounces worthiness. How does my ass look? I was organizing clothes for the living, but more importantly, how does my ass look? I was feeling happy, but how does my ass look? I was having fun, but how does my ass look? Declaration. I was throwing out moldy roses. I was spending my life. I was assembling a golden glitter shrine to self. I was spreading this life. The second Beychella show was streaming, and I was all aboard! My life, doused in smiles. I'd already thrown out the box adorned with dead bugs, so life was spinning herself around me. And I keep all my old notebooks, and so I have a box. I have been actually preparing for a yard sale, and I'm moving, so I've been whittling all my stuff. But I have journals from like when I was 7 years old on, and I found one that was called Libra, a personal journal, and it has my sun, when I was born, was in Libra, and my moon too. And so I have this journal, Libra and Archetypes, and there are 3 of them. And one of them is The Peacemaker. So I'm going to read 2 poems from that section of this. And Matt, thank you again. And I'm going to buy a copy. I have $7. And I'm not going to read the poem tonight that's in there, but I had to write a poem, the response to that poem, because that's how I am. I'm very like, well, whatever. I'll read it. But before I read it, actually, I'll just read it. Not my problem, all of our problems, mostly white people's problem. Whiteness is fallow. It lays waste to every new life along a spectrum reliant on convenience and ubiquity. Whiteness hawks never enoughness and, when we cannot pay up front, charges interest on our spirits and monthly loan payments. It is the original and ongoing maligning of dignity, joy, and individual expression. In another time, we might call this anti-force by a different name than whiteness, but this is the United States, in Brooklyn, in 2018, and so it matters that we call it whiteness. Whiteness is an ideological monster whose true shape is murderous coward. Where before it was hidden, for example, behind the 1990s television show Friends, now it struggles to hide, and a new shade of panic, post-vax, glitches out across our collective screen. In the first person singular, I will no longer grant this coward whiteness immunity in my home. In the first person plural, we are stardust, we are golden, and we have got to get ourselves back to the garden. That is a Joni Mitchell lyric, and I have to credit it. Okay, so now it's your turn, audience. So fill in the blank, and we'll do this twice, and we'll see, because audience participation is like, but whatever you guys feel like doing, it's hard. I know, thank you. I'll give you some, a modicum of credit. I give you guys a lot of credit. Okay, all right.
Doesn't sound like it.
fill in the blank. All right, so in the hopes of dispelling this terrible emptiness.
Cheetos.
Yes, thank you, Jordan. Okay. And we'll do it on the count of, well, when I finish saying emptiness. So, I don't know, first thought, best thought. We can do it a couple of times. Okay. And this is from a section that I called Let's Exchange the Experience, which is a Kate Bush lyric, but also, yeah. And apparently it's about, like, I was on genius.com, obviously. I had to come up with like a little bibliography. And she says that lyric in particular is about like men imagining their women and women imagining their men and vice versa or whatever. But gender binary aside, when I first, and all of that, but I was like, that's really cool because it's also about a thought replacement or an attitudinal adjustment or like replacing one habit that doesn't serve you with another. Let's exchange the experience. And so, anyway, in that spirit. So it's your turn. Fill in the blank. In the hopes of dispelling this terrible emptiness.
Orgasm.
Okay.
Okay, and then we'll do it like everybody say something at once, but no pressure. Everybody close their eyes. I will too. In the hopes of dispelling this terrible emptiness.
Yes.
All right, thank you guys.
I love funky ritual stuff. I thought we were going to go on and do more like Mad Lib. This next poet I met at Daniel's reading at Dixon Place. They were incredibly friendly and just a great artist. And like, I'm so psyched that they're here. I'm honored that they would come read at this little thing. So let's have a big round of applause for Todd Colby.
I'm going to sit. I like this light. I have a Larry story too.
Yay.
He was a teacher of mine at Naropa in the 80s. I'll leave it at that. And I was going to University of Iowa, and I came back. I was a sophomore, 20 years old, and I was going through this heartbreaking breakup, just like it was my high school sweetheart. It was just, I was miserable. And so who do you call at 2 a.m. but Larry Fagan? So only when you're 20 would you ever do this. So I call him, and there's a time difference and everything, so I clearly woke him up, and I said, I am so heartbroken, I'm never gonna love again. And he just patiently listened to me, and he said, I got it. You have to think of the pivot, the unwobbling pivot, which Pound wrote about, this Confucian idea. But just like, you're a top, and if you're not concentrating on that point of that top, and your reality is outside and somebody else is controlling, you're always going to be imbalanced. So get back and be in the top. And I was like, oh, yeah. And that helped. So it was a sweet moment. And he later became a friend, and which is nice. But I miss him. He was a great man and a great teacher. So I'm going to read 2 from this. The writing is so small. I like the idea of the smallest font, but it's really hard to read this. The first one is called Let Me Have Some of What You Need Me For. In order to have a better sense of the future, it is important to plan some outings along the coastal highway. In the sunlight, there are some visible signs of deterioration of the clavicle and the cranial lump. Use the tweezers to remove any errant hairs from the back of your pet. Intersperse your conversations with references to aluminum causeways and pink pilings. I'll be directing the traffic to move along from the bank. Let's also think long and hard about the receptacle for your delicates. I bruise too easily. This faint stabbing sensation is unremarkable from afar, but brutal when lit by the cleagues. Let me have some of what you need me for. And the next one is I like the title Silver Jubilee so much, but I'm going to read this poem instead. Another day, another day. The great new destroyer has initiated the collapse. The ruthless first ivy tugs at everything. To get it done, click on the department's tab and go to miles, but quickly. What can you say about someone's role? Shortly after the catastrophe was pain. Everyone knew what would happen. We could see we were nailing it. We were not playing exceptionally well, but we were cozy with some of the stuff that was brought in for us. For instance, blankets and pillows. No worries of infection or headache bouters. We knew how to get there, and we were going there. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, the small font, it was just like the lineation from Lulu.com. If I made it half a size bigger, it destroyed the lineation.
Yeah.
So I had to go with it. It's corporate publishing, you know. I wanted to do it more DIY and like Xerox it or whatever, but I surrendered. I surrendered to Lulu.com. So we've just got one more poet. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for Transporter Room. It's still playing. It's still looping. It's creating music over there. We just can't hear it. Thank you for all the poets. Thank you to Spoonbill Sugartown. Thank you guys a lot for the work. Like, I really appreciate it. I appreciate being able to publish it. Like, you are the book, and like, I'm trying to get it out there. I'm trying to get it out into the world and have people read it. It's amazing stuff, you know. Like, I really appreciate it a lot. So, this last poet, I also met at Bruce High Quality Foundation, and it's amazing on the page. It looks cool. It's kind of Gertrude Steiny. But it might get experimental, I'm not sure. So let's have a big round of applause for Zoe Macintosh.
It's such a pleasure to be here and hear all these poems. I really feel blown away, and my self-esteem is very happy to be a part of this publication. It's so nice to send poems to someone and have them like get right back to you and tell you which ones they want. It's like instant gratification, and the theme and just everything. It's like, it's such a nice feeling. So I'm actually going to start with the poem that I think you were mentioning that, and I'm going to read it, and then I was thinking of just asking someone from the audience to read it with me too, so I can explain. Okay, so I need to like relax. Excellent. It's called Protean Moisture. Protean, our lust, follow cues alone, an illusion, each gender. Protean, moisture conditions, our lust, follow cues alone, conditions our skin, the membrane an illusion, authorized, each gender naturally hydrates. Protein, our lush, follicles aloe, for lotion, a peach tender. Protein, moisture conditions, our lush, follicles aloe, conditions our skin, the membrane for lotion, authorized, a peach tender, naturally hydrates. Moisture conditions our skin, the membrane, authorized, naturally hydrates. So I was thinking of reading this poem with someone else. Does anyone want to volunteer?
I'll do it.
What?
I'll do it.
Okay, so I'm really curious to see how it sounds. So let's see.
Are those like rice papers?
Yeah, really.
They are. It's paper towels.
Oh, they're paper towels.
Nothing's open right now. And who owns a printer anymore? Okay, so you don't want them.
No. like a
So
computer program. Very cool.
Do you want to sit? 'Cause I'm wearing pants, so you can sit.
I'm good. Okay, so do you want to read it like? Okay, so first we're gonna read it like that, and then like that,
So-
and then like that. That's what okay, you're gonna read it like that while I'm reading the side, and then you're gonna. I'm curious, and then like that,
Okay.
and then just no. Okay. I think it's gonna work out. Okay. So when I say the first word, you say that one.
Okay.
Protean,
Protein.
our lust, follow cues, alone,
Alone.
an illusion,
Fellowship.
each gender.
Peach tender.
Protean, moisture, conditions, our lush, follow cues, alone, conditions our skin, the membrane, an illusion, authorized, each gender, naturally hydrates. Moisture conditions, conditions our skin, the membrane, authorized, naturally hydrates. Thank you so much, Jordan. That was fun. I think that was great. Okay. So I'm just gonna read one more poem from the magazine as well. How is all this rain? Did you guys enjoy the rain this week?
There's more coming.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of atmospheric feelings. So on that note. This poem is called Moist Night. I stroll down the sidewalk after a rain. Traffic lights pour juice in plastic cups. Orange follows green in glare routine. Orange follows green in plastic cups. Traffic lights pour juice after a rain. I stroll down the sidewalk.
Alright, I mean, that's going to wrap it up. I'm going to read a short piece real fast, but get drunk, be somebody, buy books, buy other books.
Yeah.
Check it out. They got great shit here. I think we might be going out afterwards, so if people want to party, you know, we're going to smoke and things, so if you're down. Thank you all for coming again. This is Easy Paradise. I'm going to leave one last piece. It's called Cocktail, Eggs, and K's. I wrote this in the Burnett Mayer Feminist Reading Group, listening to Burnett Mayer's Memory Project, which is an incredible, incredible piece. So this is kind of like overhearing and then rearranging. Cocktail, Eggs, and K's. Look, tissues by pretty red feet. Rolling state police driving blue flowers by the side of the road southward to Argentina. Nearer, my God, to thee. Easy Paradise, everybody.
Mine's Steve Rex.
Does anybody want to buy books?
Do you have like
Anybody wants to buy books? Their books are over here.
Oh, the Easy Parents
I
book?
mean, I sell them over there. Should I turn the mic on? Just like selling books in general?
Right?